All right, shalom, everyone, and welcome. We are back. Again, we are going to finish, hopefully, the Slovonic secrets of Enoch. And that is what it says, right? The Ethiopic, the Slavonic, and the Hebrew. So we stopped off at chapter 58. And that's where we shall pick it back up and go again. And I'm going to put these on again. Listen to me, my children. All this to me is perfectly showing why it would be taking out the moon, the stars, the earth, of what we're doing. Obey Yahweh. If you don't obey Yahweh, where you're going to go, what is there, what it looks like. Of course, you want to take all that out, right? Listen to me, my children, today. In those days when Yahweh came down to earth for Adam's sake and visited all his creatures which he created, after all these, he created Adam, and Yahweh called all the beasts of the earth, all the reptiles, and all the birds that soar in the air, and brought them before the face of our father Adam. And Adam gave names to all the living on earth. And Yahweh appointed him ruler over all, and subjected all things to him under his hands, and made them dumb, and made them dull, that would be commanded by men, and that subjection would obedience to him, man. And Yahweh also created every man Lord over his possessions. And Yahweh will not judge a single soul for beast of man's sake, but he judges the souls of the men through their beast in the world, where men have a special place. And as every soul of man is according to the number, similarly beasts will not perish, nor all souls of beasts which Yahweh created, until the great judgment, and they will accuse men if the men did not feed them well. Right there, right? So the animals are going to live forever as well. But it seems like to me, not only that, they will come into judgment. We see these people that beat on animals and kill animals and don't feed them and treat them terrible. Sounds like to me that's a judgment. Whoever defiles the soul of beast defiles his own soul. For man brings clean animals to make sacrifice for sin, that he may have cure for his own soul. And if they bring clean animals and birds for sacrifice, man has a cure. He cures his own soul. All is given for you for food. Bind it by the 4 feet to make the good of the cure. But whoever kills beasts without wounds kills his own soul and defiles his own flesh. And he who does any beast any injury whatsoever in secret, it is an evil practice, and he defiles his own soul. He who works the killing of a man's soul, who orders it, who murders it, kills his own soul and kills his own body, and there is no cure for him for all time. He who puts a man in any snare, moral entrapment, shall stick himself in it, and there shall be no cure for him for all time. He who puts a man in any vessel, he who puts a man in any vessel, his retribution will not be wanting at the great judgment for all time. He who dishonestly or speaks evil against any soul will not make justice for himself for all time. And now, my children, keep your hearts from every injustice which Yahweh hates. Just as a man asks something for his own soul from Elohim, so let him do the same to every living soul, because I know all things, how in that great time to come there is a great inheritance prepared for men, good for the good and bad for the bad, no matter the number. Blessed are those who enter the good houses, for in the bad houses there is no peace or return from them. Hear, my children, small and great, when man puts a good thought in his heart, he brings gifts from his labors before Yahweh's face. But if his hands do not make them, Yahweh will turn away his face from the labor of his hand, and that man cannot find his labor of his hands. And if his hands made it, but his heart murmurs and complains, and his heart does not stop murmuring incessantly, he does not have gain or any advantage. Blessed is the man who is in his patience, brings his gifts with faith before Yahweh's face, because he will find forgiveness of sins. But if he takes back his words before the time, there is no repentance for him. And if the time passes and he does not of his own will perform what is promised, there is no repentance after death. because every work which man does before the time, outside of time, has it promised unto him. It is all deceitful before men and sin before Elohim. When man clothes the naked and fills the hungry, he will find reward from Elohim. But if his heart complains, he commits a double evil, ruin of himself and that which he gives. For him there will be no finding of reward of that. And if his own heart is filled with his food and his own flesh is clothed with his own clothing, he commits contempt and will forfeit all his endurance of poverty and will not find reward of his good deeds. Is he selfish and does not add to the economy of others? Every proud, ponophoning man is hateful to Yahweh, and every false speech is clothed in lies. It will be cut with the blade of the sword of death and thrown into the fire and shall burn all time. When Enoch had spoken these words to his sons, all the people far and near heard how Yahweh was calling Enoch. They took counsel together. Let us go and kiss Enoch. And 2,000 men came together and came to the place called Akazan, where Enoch was with his sons. And the elders of the people with the entire assembly came and bowed down and began to kiss Enoch and said to him, Our father Enoch, may you be blessed by Yahweh, the eternal ruler, and now bless your sons and all the people that we may glorify today before your face. For you shall be glorified before Yahweh's face for eternity, since Yahweh chose you from among all men on the earth and designed you as the writer of all his creation, both physical and spiritual. And you are redeemed from the sins of men and are the helper of your household. And Enoch said to all the people, Hear me, O children, before all creatures were created, Yahweh created the physical and the spiritual things. And then a long term passed, and after all that he created man in the likeness of his own form. And he put eyes into him to see, and ears into him to hear, and a heart to reflect, and intellect to enable him to deliberate. And Yahweh saw all the works of man and created his creatures in divided time. From time he determined the years, and from the years he appointed the months, and from the months he appointed the days, and the days he appointed 7. And in those he appointed the hours, measured them out exactly, that man might reflect on time and count years, months, hours, as they alternate from beginning to end, so that he might count his own life from the beginning until death, and reflect on his sin and write his works, both bad and good. No work is hidden from Yahweh, so that every man might know his works and never transgress all his commandments, and keep my writing from generation to generation. When all creation, both physical and spiritual, as Yahweh created it, shall end, then every man goes to the great judgment. And then all time shall be destroyed with the years. And from then on there will be neither months nor days nor hours. They will run together and will not be counted. There will be one eon, one age. And all righteous who shall escape Yahweh's judgment shall be collected in that great eon, or age. For the righteous, the great eon will begin, and they will live eternally. And there will be no labor, nor sickness, nor humiliation, nor anxiety, nor need, nor brutality, nor night, nor darkness, but great light among them all. And they shall have a great indestructible wall, and a paradise that is bright and eternal, for all mortal things shall pass away, and there will be eternal life. And now, my children, keep your souls from all injustice, for Yahweh hates. Walk before his face with great fear, respect and trembling, and serve him only. Bow down to the true Elohim, not to dumb idols, but bow down to his likeness, and bring all just offering before Yahweh's face. Yahweh hates what is unjust. For Yahweh sees all things when man takes it to his heart. Then he cancels the intellects, and every thought is always before Yahweh, who made firm the earth and put all creatures on it. Notice it said made firm the earth. If you look to heaven, Yahweh is there. If you take thought of the sea's depth and all under the earth, Yahweh is there. For Yahweh created all things. Bow now not down to man-made things, leaving Yahweh of all creation, but no work can remain hidden before Yahweh's face. Walk, my children, in long suffering and meekness, honesty, thoughtfulness, and grief, in faith, in truth. Walk and rely on the promises in the times, the illness, the abuse, the wounds, the temptation, the nakedness, prevarication, loving one another until you go out from this age of ills, that you become inheritors of the endless time. Blessed are the just who shall escape the great judgment, for they shall shine forth more than the sun sevenfold. For in this world the seventh part is taken off from all light. Light, darkness, food, enjoyment, sorrow, paradise, torture, fire, frost, and other things. He put all down in writing that you might read and understand. When Enoch had talked to the people, Yahweh sent out darkness on the earth, and there was a darkness, and it covered those men standing with Enoch. And they took Enoch up unto the highest heaven, where Yahweh is. And there Elohim received him and placed him before his face. And the darkness went off from the earth, and light came again. And the people saw and did not understand how Enoch had been taken. And they glorified Elohim and found a scroll in which was written, The God of the spiritual. Then they all went to the dwelling places. Enoch was born on the 6th day of the month of Tishvan, the first month of the year, and he lived 365 years. He was taken up to heaven on the 1st day of the month, Tishvan, and remained in heaven 60 days. He wrote all these signs of all creation, which Yahweh created, and wrote 366 books, and handed them over to his sons, and remained on earth 30 days, and was taken up again to heaven on the 6th day of the month of Tishvan, on the very day and the very hour he was born. As every man's nature in this life is dark, so are also his conception, his birth, his departure from this life. At what hour he was conceived, and at what hour he was born, and at that hour he also died. Methuselah and his brethren, all the sons of Enoch, made haste, and erected an altar at the place called Ashazan, where Enoch had been taken up to heaven. They took sacrificial oxen and summoned all people and sacrificed the sacrifice before Yahweh's face. All people, the elders of the people, and the whole assembly came to the feast and brought gifts to the sons of Enoch. And they made a great feast, rejoicing and making merry 3 days, praising Elohim, who had given them such a sign through Enoch, who had found favor with them, and that they should hand it on to their sons from generation to generation, from age to age. Isn't that amazing? The wife of Ner was Sophia. She was sterile and never had any time given birth, nor a child by Ner. Now this is like addition to what's going on. Sophia was in her old age, and in the last days, in the time of her death, she conceived in her womb, but Ner the priest had not slept with her from the day that Yahweh had appointed him to conduct the liturgy in front of the face of the people. When Sophia saw her pregnancy, she was ashamed and embarrassed, and she hid herself during all the days until she gave birth. Not one of the people knew about it. When 282 days had been completed and the day of the birth had begun to approach, Ner thought about his wife, and he called her to come to him in his house so that they might converse with each other. Sophia came to Ner, her husband, and behold, she was pregnant, and the day appointed for giving birth was drawing near. Ner said to her, and became very ashamed. He said to her, What is this that you have done, O wife? Why have you disgraced me in front of all the face of the people? Now depart from me and go back to where you began in disgrace of your womb, so that I might not defile my hands in front of the face of Yahweh on account of you and your sin. Sophia spoke to her husband and said, Ner, saying, O my Lord, look at me. It is time of my old age that the day of my death is arrived. I do not understand how menopause and barrenness of my womb have been reversed. But Ner did not believe his wife. For the second time he said to her, Depart from me, or else I might assault you and commit a sin in front of the face of Yahweh. And after Ner had spoken to his wife Sophia, she fell down at Ner's feet and died. Ner was extremely distressed and said to himself, Could this have happened because of my words? And now merciful is the eternal Yahweh, because my hand was not open unto her. The archangel Gabriel appeared to Ner and said to him, Do not think that your wife Sophia had died due to your error. This child which is to be born from her is a righteous fruit, the one whom I shall receive into paradise, so that you will not be the father and the gift of Elohim. Ner hurried and shut the door in his house. He went to Noah, his brother, and he reported him to everything and happened in connection with his wife. Noah hurried to the room of his brother. The appearance of his brother's wife was like as if she were dead, but her womb was still at the same time giving birth. Noah said to Ner, "Don't let yourself be sorrowful, Ner, my brother. Today the Lord has covered up your scandal because nobody from his people knows. Now let us quickly and bury her, and the Lord will cover up the scandal of our shame." They placed Sophium on the bed, wrapped her around with black garments, and shut the door. They dug a grave in secret. When they had gone out toward the grave, a child came out from Sophium's dead body and sat on the bed at her side. Noah and Ner came to the burying of Sophium and saw the child sitting beside Sophium's dead body, and he was wiping his clothing. Noah and Ner were very terrified with great fear because the child was physically fully developed. The child spoke with his lips and blessed Yahweh. Noah and Ner looked at him closely, saying, "This is from Yahweh, my brother." The badge of priesthood is on his chest. And in his glorious appearance, Noah said to Ner, "God is renewing the priesthood from blood related to us, just as he pleases." Noah and Ner hurried and washed the child. They dressed him in the garments of the priesthood, and they gave him bread to eat, and he ate it. And they called him Methuselah. Noah and Ner lifted up the body of Sophium and took the black garment off her and washed her. They clothed her in acceptable bright garments and built a grave for her. Noah and Ner and Methuselah came and buried her publicly. Then Noah said to his brother, "Take care of this child in secret until the proper time comes, because all the people of the earth will become treacherous and they will begin to turn away from Elohim, having become completely ignorant. When they see him, they will put him to death in some way." Then Noah went away to his own place, and there came lawlessness and began to become abundant over all the earth in the days of Ner. And Ner began to worry greatly about the child, saying, "What will I do with him?" And stretching out his hand toward heaven, Ner called out to the Lord, saying, "It is miserable for me, eternal Lord, that all the lawlessness has become abundant over all your earth in my lifetime. I realize how much nearer our end is because of the lawlessness of the people. And now, Lord, what is the vision about this child? And why is his destiny? Or what will he do? What will I do with him? What will I do for him? So that he will not be joined along with us in this destruction." Yahweh took notice of Ner and appeared to him in a night vision. And he said to him, "Ner, the great lawlessness which has begun about on the earth, I shall not tolerate any more. I plan to send down a great destruction onto the earth. But do not worry about the child, Ner. In a short while I will send my archangel Gabriel, and he will take the child and put him in the paradise of Edom. He will not perish along with those who must perish, as I have revealed it. Melchizedek will be my priest to all holy priests." So this is where he came from, right? "I will sanctify him and will establish him so that he will be the head of all the priests of the future." Then Ner arose in his sleep and blessed Yahweh and had appeared to him, saying, "Blessed is Yahweh, the God of my fathers. He has approved of my priesthood and the priesthood of my fathers because of his word. He has created a great priest in the womb of Sephium, my wife. For I have no descendants, so let this child take the place of my descendants and become his own son. You will count him in the number of your servants. Therefore honor him together with your servants and great priest, and me, your servant Ner. And behold, Melchizedek will be at the head of the priests in another generation. I know that great confusion has come, and in this confusion this generation will come to an end, and everyone will perish except that Noah, my brother, will be preserved for procreation. From his tribe there will arise numerous people, and Melchizedek will become the head of the priest, reigning over a royal people who will serve you, O Yahweh." It happened when the child had completed 40 days in Ner's tent that Yahweh said to the archangel Gabriel, "Go down to the earth to Ner, the priest, and take the child, Melchizedek, who is with him, place him in the paradise of Edom for preservation. It's Edem, not Eden. So, for the time is already approaching, and I will pour out all the water upon the earth, and everything that is on the earth will perish, and I'll raise up again Melchizedek. He will be the head of the priests in that generation. And Gabriel hurled and came flying down when it was night, when Ner was sleeping on his bed that night. Gabriel appeared to him and said to him, Yahweh says, Ner, restore the child to me when I entrusted to you. But Ner did not realize who was speaking to him, and he was confused. And he said, when the people find out about the child, they will seize him and kill him, because the heart of these people are deceitful before Yahweh. And he answered Gabriel and said, the child is not with me, and I don't know who is speaking to me. Gabriel answered him, Ner, do not be afraid. I am the archangel Gabriel. Yahweh sent me to take your child today. I will go with him and will place him in the paradise of Edom. Then Ner remembered the first dream and believed it. He answered Gabriel, blessed is Yahweh, who has sent me to you today. Now bless your servant Ner, take the child and do to him all that has been said to you. And Gabriel took the child, Melchizedek, on his wings in that same night, and he placed him in the paradise of Edom. Ner got up in the morning, and he went into his tent and did not find the child. There was great joy and grief for Ner, because he felt the child had place of the sun. Yahweh said to Noah, make an ark that is 300 cubits in length, 50 cubits in width, and 30 cubits in height. Put the entrance to the ark in the side, and make it with 2 stories in the middle. Yahweh Elohim opened the doors of heaven. Rain came unto the earth, and all flesh died. Noah fathered 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. He went into the ark in his 600th year. After the flood, he lived 350 years. He lived in all 950 years, according to Yahweh or Elohim. To our Elohim be glory always, now and forever, and for all eternity. So be it. So this finishes up this second part. It goes through and obviously tells us about what has happened, where Melchizedek come from, where the high priest had come from, and why he had to be taken away. It also tells us clearly that if you just obey Yahweh, obviously things will be good. It also tells us that when you obey Yahweh, that things on this earth will not be that great. But knowing all these things, we know what we have to contend with. It also says that they rejoiced for 3 days at his death. So it's amazing that just like it says, Ecclesiastes, I believe it's 7, right? That it talks about the day of one's death is better than the day of birth. So all these things that we learn from the book of Enoch, all these things that we've gone over, all these things that we've come up with, isn't it amazing of how it tells us these things? It tells us the moon, the stars, that the Yarek, the Meshi, the names of the stars, the names of the watchers. To me, this is just so expressively saying, if you're going to disobey Yahweh, there's a place you're going to go. And Yahweh made you eternal. Yahweh doesn't change. We have to remember that, right? Yahweh does not change. So if he made Adam eternal, what would change his mind? If he made Eve eternal, what would change his mind? If he made you and me eternal, we're eternal. The flesh, as we see, the skin, the dirt, goes back to the dirt. But it seems like even at that, at one point, especially for the righteous, will be redeemed, right? Once that blood, once that flesh, once that is all renewed from what this sounds like, because what do we have? The water that purges the earth, but what must purge all things? The fire, the Ruach, right? So this holy heavenly Father is going to purge this earth. Talks about a new heaven and a new earth. So I would say that new body obviously could also be merged with this same body. Once that flesh, that dirt, that sinful nature is washed and burnt away from it. But regardless, we clearly see that in here it tells us clearly of what's happening, right? It says, hey, look, you're going to be forever. And Enoch is telling us he's seen these things. He knows the measurements, and he clearly tells us it's not for us. It's not for humans. But because of the sin, he's not going to make something new for humans and angels and everything and dogs and cats and everything else, right? No. There's one place. There's two roads. It's all two roads. It's all the same story from the beginning to the end, really. Obey Yahweh and live. Disobey Yahweh and die. And the death is not just, oh, poof, I'm over. And I think that's where a lot of people, atheists included, believers included, we are just so far off the mark because we're just saying, oh, there is no, some people believe, or they say they believe there's no hell. Well, with no hell, then what's the point? Who cares? Why do anything, right? I mean, we are flesh and blood. We have to be told and be given reason or be given something of why we do what we do. Because if we don't do what we're supposed to do, what happens? We get in trouble, right? And because of that trouble is usually why we don't do what we're supposed to do, right? It's because of that trouble is why we stop doing those things. Make sense? So I hope this is edified. I hope this helps. I hope it lets everyone know. And again, going through this, I think only builds us in wisdom, only builds us into what's going on. Our last one we're going to go over is the Hebrew book, right there, the Hebrew book of Enoch. See if that's any different. See if that's going to say anything different. See if that's going to be any different than the rest of these, or they all match up pretty good. It seems like these other two, the first book, the Ethiopian and the Slovonic, pretty much matched up. They pretty much saying the same story, that there's a heaven, there's a hell, there's stars, there's sun, moon, and stars. It's all created by Yahweh, and so on and so forth. So it all goes together. But it's those missing parts, I believe, that people ask. Well, what about heaven? What about hell? What about this? It's talking about the seventh heaven. How do we know that everybody ain't alive and well in the third heaven? How do we know that people that have passed, why do we say things? Where do we get these things? Almost everybody upon everybody says they passed, right? Where did they pass to? Where did they go? I think we inertly know something happened, but a lot of people rather believe, well, they're asleep in the ground, or they're just sleeping, or this. They rather believe that as opposed to what this is saying, as opposed to what the Messiah said. Just like with all things, what Yahweh says trumps everything. What the Messiah says trumps everything. When the Messiah said, today you will be with me, today. He didn't say next year, after the resurrection, in the third resurrection, after this, before that, and through the river and all. He didn't say all that. He said, today you will be with me in paradise. It sounds like today is judgment for those people who passed. Today is their day of, and it only makes sense, does it not? It makes perfectly sense to me. So I believe this is saying that same thing. I think we see it even with Enoch. This is saying we live upon a place created by the Creator. And without the Creator, we have nothing, which makes perfectly good sense with all these things, right? Without the Creator, we're just spinning around in the middle of nothing, doing nothing, in a bunch of nothing. Just a speck of dirt. And I think that's why a lot of people that don't believe, because all the bad things they see, they don't understand. Most of the bad things we see are because of sin. Do we agree? Most of the things that we see upon this earth at every level, from the highest to the lowest, is usually because of sin in one form, one manner, one way or another. This one sin, that one sin, this one sin, that one sin. They're all like, well, we can't do this and we can't keep from sinning, we can't do that. But this clearly shows us, stop sinning and live eternally. And think about what he has wrote down. Think about what is in here. The glorious things that even in a vision, even in an eternal body, even in that realm, he couldn't describe. He can't describe Yahweh. He can't describe heaven. He don't even know what's going on. He's asking the angels, what's happening? Who's this? What's going on? Well, here, this is what's happening. Same things that we see, we can't comprehend. We want to know, but in most cases, most people want to know why. For wisdom's sake. Not because they're going to go tell it to the world that, guess what? Hey, Aunt Barbara, if you don't do this, you're going to be in this burning place that Enoch's speaking of. How come we never hear that anymore? How come we never hear that preached anymore? How come that's not a big deal? When obviously it should be. To turn them away is to turn people away. It's to keep them from sinning. So the opposite of that is what? You repent. Call upon Yahweh. But even at that point, at what I do? That's the problem with churchianity and the circus show. That's it. They're saved, game over. But according to all these books, it's not over. It's not over until judgment. So again, that's it. May Yahweh bless you. May his kindness shine upon you. May he grant you shalom. We will go over the other one probably at a later date, but I would like to finish that off too and finish this book off. If you have any more books, there's a couple more that I'd like to get into. We have the missing books of the Bible here that I would like to crack them open. And there's a few more things that others have wanted to get into as well. We also have, of course, the Dead Sea Scrolls and things of that nature. But they're not a read like this. This is more of a reading going through it. That's more of the fragments from Leviticus to Deuteronomy, different ones, Bereshit, and this one, that, and the other. Where this is a pretty good read, I think. So, until next time, thank you for listening, for watching. We'll go over this later and try to break it down. But the third introduction to Enoch the third. So until next time, have a great one. Shalom, shalom, shalom.